Hey, everyone. Welcome back to Entrepreneurial Thinkers. And I really hope you enjoy this episode you're about to listen to because I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation with my friend, Pedro Crespo, diving in to try and unpack the problematic relationship between the venture capital industry and it becoming more inclusive, more diverse, more equitable for all types of people. And it's an important conversation we all need to have all the time. It wrestles with this idea of, are we trying to change the table? Are we trying to get access to that table and then change that table? Or are we trying to maybe more efficiently just build better other tables next to it? And so Pedro brings a humility and a wisdom that far outstrips his age and experience levels. And he brings just an amazing, inspirational, great story for all of us about what's possible when you put yourself outside your comfort zone, what's possible when you bet on yourself, and what's possible in life when you have an entrepreneurial thinker's mindset and you see opportunities where most people see problems, and then you leap forward to try and make the world a little bit better place for all of us, as he says. So I hope you enjoy the episode because we really enjoyed making it for you. Hola, hello, hi, bienvenido, and welcome back or welcome to Entrepreneurial Thinkers. Today, I'm really grateful to have this conversation with my friend Pedro Crespo. Pedro's a young but seasoned venture capitalist and investment manager who proudly hails from New York City, now living the West Coast life out here with us up in San Francisco. He brings a really diverse professional and personal background, and frankly, I think that's his superpower, and that's what we're really here to talk about today. He brings some varied experiences in both operations, sales management, and investment management to his current role at CoreNest, where he spearheads the sourcing, evaluation, and execution of early-stage investments in disruptive startups. Graduating with an MBA from Babson College and a BA in political science from the Colin Powell School for Civic and Global Leadership at City College, New York, Pedro's academic foundation complements his practical life experiences. As a former co-founder twice over himself, a digital events platform, and a diversity inclusion organization, Pedro's investment work today is built upon his entrepreneurial spirit and, I believe, his entrepreneurial thinking. He's passionate about both leveraging technology, data, and networks for positive impact, and is really deeply engaged in driving social change through his work. Pedro, bienvenido, buddy. Welcome to Entrepreneurial Thinkers.
Hey, Rob, how's it going? That's the best introduction I've ever gotten.
Somebody said to me recently, they were like, hey, can I pay you to just come and read that introduction of me to everybody I meet?
I need you to be on all the HR meetings that I will ever be on for the future.
Right? I think this could be a new business. I could set up like a Cameo-like
Rob as
platform
a
that basically is
service.
just me introducing people and reading their bios for them, right? So it's
Hey,
awesome
man.
to see you. I thank you. I think what was the last time we saw each other was about a year ago,
Uh,
last summer.
Maybe like 6.5 months ago, we were in LA.
Very true. Oh, that's right. That's right. We have seen each other twice in the last year.
Yeah.
Anytime you come to town, it's an easy salad or taco lunch for us. So
I mean, it's always great talking to someone like you.
how's life up in San Francisco this morning?
Beautiful weather, sunny. I
Nice.
moved down from San Francisco to the Bay,
Okay.
to further South Bay in Mountain View, down the block from Google. And the weather here
Ah,
is almost always lovely. Can't really complain about it.
right.
It's like living in a resort,
The South.
unlike in New York.
No, exactly. Yeah, the South Bay is a beautiful part of the country. So when you walk out in the morning, are you just overwhelmed? Like right on the outside the street corner of your house or your apartment, like do you just people just like AI, 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 AI? Is
You
that what's
know,
going on up there now?
if I was in San Francisco and a year ago, I would say yes. But right
That's
now,
funny.
where I'm at, you have the big legacy companies. You don't really see all of that.
Ah,
What I do see is a lot of trees, a lot of plants, a lot of birds and squirrels. So I get to stay away from all that hype cycle that's going on further up.
that's healthy though, right? That's a
It
good
is.
balance. Keep your feet in the birds and the trees and the breezes from the ocean and all that.
Yeah, I
Um,
love the separation. Like, I'll go into the city because I have a space that I like to work out of there in the Ferry Building, meet a couple founders, fellow investors, people in the industry, and that's where I'll talk about business. That's where I'll talk
yeah.
about current trends. But then I come back down here and it's a reprieve.
Good for you.
Yeah.
That's a great balance in life. And also, by the way, you just named probably my favorite, most iconic building in San Francisco is the Ferry Building. Like
Beautiful place.
I don't care what I don't care what I'm up in there, up in town, or like last summer, or I guess maybe, yeah, 2 summers ago now, I was in the on the East Bay at Berkeley for about a month or so, and I always make time to come across and hang out around the Ferry Building.
You can't walk into that building without get gaining a couple of pounds from all the smells, from the bakeries.
That must be my problem. I must have done that too much over the last couple of years. I get it. All right, so here we go, buddy. Just to reframe for those that are new and joining us, right? The show, just the title of the show, Entrepreneurial Thinkers, right? This is about my belief thesis, my belief system, that the world doesn't just need more entrepreneurs or investors, right? But in fact, the world needs more entrepreneurial thinkers across all sectors of society, all segments of industry, to solve both the problems that we constantly face, no matter the era, or to seize the opportunities that we are presented with as societies, and kind of, we evolve and whatnot. So that's the kind of underlying premise of what we're about to talk about and explore in your journey. So let's just start out with that right away, right? So my first question to you is, do you think, or I think you do, so maybe why do you think entrepreneurial thinking unlocks new opportunities for people like yourself and what we might call kind of historically under-supported investors or entrepreneurs?
Tough question, but I think the reason it unlocks this new opportunity is because entrepreneurship, entrepreneurial thinking, being an entrepreneur, it's so unstructured. It is so unrelegated to rules set by society. It is like a jack in a box. You keep turning, and you'll wait for a moment that you think is going to come. It doesn't, and then you keep going, and then it does come. And so I think that kind of activates a certain base in your brain that forces you to act differently, to go about life differently. It
Mm-hmm.
engages every aspect of your being, your creativity, your lack thereof, your math skills, your marketing skills. You walk about life looking at things in a different perspective. I can walk down a street block, and I'm like, oh, what's the business opportunity there? Where did they go wrong?
Yeah.
That logo sucks. And it's all entrepreneurial because you're thinking about how we can make the world we live in today better, faster,
Uh,
more money, more efficient,
yeah,
better for everyone, and move things forward.
that's so true.
Yeah, which I think you go from being an entrepreneur, and if you start a company, the later stage of the company goes, you start losing that entrepreneurial spirit a lot of times. Not everyone, but a lot of times. And that's when things starts to stagnate. That's when things get more corporate. That's when you lose the innovative spirit, that desire to challenge the status quo, to challenge what exists in the world presently to try to make something
Yeah.
better.
Would you
And
say,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt, for underrepresented founders, right? For folks that are coming from diverse backgrounds, for folks that are coming from kind of the places out of the way of the mainstream of the typical technology industry or venture industry, would you say it's almost a requirement that they have this mindset, that they have this type of thinking, because you're forced to navigate a system that just wasn't built for you, or maybe even was kind of built stacked against you?
I think it's like, right, when you put a dog or a cow or any animal inside a cage, and they eventually figure out a way out of that cage. Wasn't because they wanted to be in the cage, because they wanted to get out of the cage. They forced themselves out. They had to think creatively outside
Mm,
of that cage. And I think for us, maybe that's the wrong metaphor to use, but for a significant portion of history, that's where we've been.
yeah,
We've been constrained to certain levels in society, certain jobs in society, certain educational attainment goals in society. And
yeah,
we have to think creatively. You have to think outside the box. You have to want more. All things entrepreneurs do, right?
yep,
But we have to
right,
do that from the
100%.
moment that we start walking.
Right. I was just gonna say, no, right. I mean, that's kind of the thread that I want to pull on a little bit, right? So it's a perfect time, actually. Great segue. Let's talk about your story. right. I suspect if I'd run into you, if I'd been lucky enough to meet super young Pedro 15 years ago in New York or New Jersey somewhere, right? And I would have said, you're going to be in San Francisco sitting on a podcast talking about venture capital. You're going to be an investor, an operator, a deal maker. You probably would have been like, what? Who are, like,
No,
first of all, why are you talking to me? Who are you? Right.
yeah.
So tell us your story. Where are you from and how did you grow up? And then maybe as we get, kind of the latter section of your story, like how have the experiences that you encountered growing up shaped who you are today?
So I'll share something that just happened yesterday, and then I'll go back and tell you a little bit more
Mm,
about my story.
awesome.
But
Please
you
do.
said, where was I 15 years ago? And yesterday, my friend sent me an image of myself 15 years ago.
Oh, whoa.
And the image was like on a COVID test that my groomsmen had wrapped a picture of me on for my bachelor party when we went away to
Okay.
Mexico. So it was a photo of me 15 years ago. I was in the park in high school, and I'm looking at my face, and I was like, wow, I was different. I looked
Yeah.
completely different. And at that point in time, I wanted to be a lawyer. I was going to be the first
Okay.
Hispanic male Supreme Court justice. That was it.
There you go.
That was the goal, right? And
That's
at the
incredible.
at the same time, I think that was around the same time where Justice Sotomayor was getting nominated to be the first Latina Supreme Court justice. And so
Okay.
I was like, okay, I can't be the first Latino, but I'll be the first. I can't be the first Latinx person, but I'll be the first Latino male to be the Supreme Court. And going through high school, that's what I wanted to be. I got to college. I made the tough decision not to go into a private university. You
Yep.
can guess why. The honest
Yep.
answer is I didn't have the money to take on all those loans to go to the university that I wanted to go to. So I decided to
Like
stay.
lots of folks. Yep.
Yeah. So I decided to stay local, go to the City College of New York, which is the flagship school of the City University of New York, the second largest or third largest school system in the country. And
Yep.
there I studied political science. I got into an honors program that was training students to become lawyers.
Hmm.
From my cohort, I think about only 8 of us became lawyers. Of like 30, 8 of them
Okay.
became lawyers, not me.
Right. Yeah. Right.
That second to last year, my junior year at college, my uncle had a seizure. It semi-paralyzed him, and my mom had to take care of him. Family lost income. I saw that, and I was like, I have to take a full-time job. So I had done an internship the summer before as a financial analyst at Columbia University, and my boss at the time was looking for a new entry. So I took the role. It was a full-time gig, worked 40 hours a week, but I still was going to school full time.
Wow.
So I would wake up extra early, go to work extra early. I got permission to go to work earlier and leave work earlier. And then 4 p.m., 5 p.m. around that time to 9 or 10 p.m. at night for the last 2 years, I was going to school. So I graduated on time with all my colleagues, but unlike many of my colleagues, I had a full-time job
Right.
at that time. I would go out, I would take them out because I had
Yeah. I
a
was gonna
job.
say
I
you
had a
had you
life.
had what they were gonna have to then hustle to find, right?
Yeah, yeah. But to be honest, I was chasing money at that time.
Sure.
And so that kind of blinded my ambitions of going to law school. Why pay $200,000 to go to law school when I'm already making XYZ amount, right?
Right.
And that kind of blind ambition kind of like set me on this path of like entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And that's in 2016, I co-founded the first business called The Licit Mind. And there I acted as the CFO, COO, head of everything except not the CEO.
Yeah.
And we held hackathons trying to get more black and brown folks into tech companies. So we would get sponsors, Microsoft, Samsung, Google, to host these hackathons over the weekends, bring together teams from around the city, and have them hack away at an issue, build an app, build a team, in hopes that it be a test for them to get into the company.
Sure.
A lot of good success stories from that
From
adventure.
that.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
for the people who joined. For the company itself, it was an awful business model. We depended too much on the niceties of corporate America and marketing budgets.
Sure.
So eventually we had to fold that. And I was like, okay, I'll continue being an entrepreneur. I decided to embark on one of the most crowded fields in New York City, which was real estate. There are like 10,000 real estate agents in New York City.
Right.
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's
Yeah, it's a lot.
very limited amount of space for a new entry who has no rich friends, who have no rich parents, no rich
Right.
network, or a previous career where they are around a lot of wealthy people, right? That's the way you make it in New York City. I'm not saying you can't
Sure.
make it without hustling,
No, of course.
but generally the path is a lot of wealthy friends who you can sell or
Yeah.
buy for.
The world is not nearly the meritocracy that we like to
Yeah,
describe it as.
absolutely. And so I struggled for 2.5 years just selling by myself. Thankfully, I was given the opportunity to join a team. And as part of that team, I not only sold and rented units in New York City, but I also helped develop the operations strategy, the operations system for that team itself. And managing a team and operating a team is like running a business because you are
Yeah.
entrepreneurs, a group of entrepreneurs making business decisions to grow
Yeah.
your market within that space. And so I did that for the next 3 years until the pandemic hit,
Okay.
and it changed
Okay.
everything. We were not allowed to go into homes. We couldn't show homes. So we had to
Sure.
sell everything virtually. We had to convince people virtually. We weren't in New York. We weren't even allowed to meet our clients for a
Yeah.
good 6 months.
So this is another moment of opportunity for you to decide which way are you going to go. What are you going to do?
Yeah, and I kept at it. That year was probably one of the most successful years that I've ever had,
Interesting.
even considering everything that was going on in the world.
Sure.
Uh, but the work was grueling. It was long hours. It was a lot of conversations. Everything was delayed. And it kind of brought me to a place where, like, am I doing what I really want to do for the next part
Hmm.
of my life? And I had fun doing it.
I think a lot of us felt that, like, asked those questions during the pandemic, right?
Yeah,
I think no matter where you're from or what your background was.
yeah. And the answer was no. I wasn't doing what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I had the crazy idea. I wanted to go to grad school. I didn't know if it was to be a lawyer or to get an MBA. And this opportunity showed up. I got someone I knew was posting something on LinkedIn about Babson. They had dropped their GMAT requirement that year, and I hate testing. I'm a good test taker, but I hate tests.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was happy about that. I applied, I got in, got my boss to give me a recommendation. He gave me a raving recommendation, and January 2021, 22, I started grad school,
Okay.
and that that was it. I was like,
Was it
okay,
was it was it while you were in there that you started being exposed to or thinking about things like the tech industry or the venture world?
yeah. So I had took multiple venture classes, multiple
Okay.
entrepreneurship classes during my MBA. I was studying. My track was operations, supply chain, and entrepreneurship for my MBA. Right,
Yeah.
and at the same time, I quit that former job. I started a new business, and I decided
Yeah.
to start grad school at the same time. So again,
Yeah.
we're back to that full-time school, full-time
Right.
business role. I don't know why I do it to myself. I don't know how much. I don't know.
It seems maybe to sharpen the focus for a burst of time, and then you come out the other side with a new, clearer path.
It was great.
Yeah,
I moved when I started school. I moved to San Francisco because my wife, her job called her back, and they're like, you have to work from here. She didn't start working
yeah,
from the office for another 6 months, but we moved
yeah. Of
anyways.
course.
And being in the West Coast opened up my eyes to so many different things.
Yeah,
You're in the
that's
center, you're
awesome.
in the heart of venture capital, in the heart of startup life in the country, in the world, essentially. I mean, in New York, you're in the capital of finance, right?
True, true, exactly.
And
Yeah,
that's the
very
route
different.
you pursue,
Yep,
finance and law.
yep.
Um, and growing up close to Wall Street, it was
It's natural,
it's natural. It's what you want to do. You
right?
want to be a banker.
Yeah,
You want to make
you get
tons of
exposed to it.
money.
Yep,
Um, but the field is so crowded. The mindset is
sure.
so set.
Yep,
The conversations are set,
yep.
and the opportunities are limited. Moving out
So,
here,
so you brought your entrepreneurial energy, right, and all those life experiences out here, where we embrace that. We embrace the flag. We embrace the new person. We embrace the person with big ideas or ambitions or aspirations, personally or
absolutely,
professionally.
exactly.
Yeah,
And at here, I got out here, and it was like a burst of energy that I had never felt before. The sort of level of conversations, I'm not saying there's not smart people everywhere, but
sure.
the the proximity to a mass of smart people was unlike I've ever experienced before, and that just like
Yeah.
pushed me. That made me want to do more, be more, learn more, and
Still bringing your roots though. Like I'm hearing a thread now that is fascinating to hear, like this layer of your story, because there still is a thread kind of right under the surface of, okay, I'm still me, and I still care about the same causes, the same groups of people, the same opportunities for all, the same equity and access, but I'm going to just bring those passions to this new industry where, oh, by the way, this industry desperately needs that kind of thinking as well.
And so love the transition there because I had that new burst of energy, but at the same time I saw a wall, and that wall was quite honestly, I barely saw any culture that I
Mm-hmm.
understood out here. I'm
Mm-hmm.
Dominican-Ecuadorian, I'm Hispanic. I grew up in a mostly Hispanic black neighborhood. There was food everywhere, there's music everywhere, life everywhere. And I moved to San Francisco in the middle of a pandemic. That was
Right.
non-existent,
Right.
right? In San Francisco itself, very small population of
Yeah.
Hispanic and Black people. You have to go
Yeah.
across to the East Bay. I didn't have a
Right.
car, so I didn't go to the
Right.
East Bay. I lacked community in all sense of the word here. My wife and I and my cat, we were alone here. We didn't know anyone. Absolutely no one, not a singular person did we know in the Bay Area. And
Yeah.
again, the entrepreneur.
Did you also hit a wall? Like, so you hit a wall culturally. Did you also hit a wall then in the industry? Right, as you started to kind of, okay, this is an industry I think I can go be. I'll go be a part of this.
At the time, I wasn't in the industry yet. I didn't. This is 2022.
You're
I'm
studying.
studying. I'm running a
Yep.
business. We're growing the
Yep.
business. The business was doing pretty well. We had great sales and revenue. But here goes back to the culture. And this is where venture typically comes into play for many people, specifically Hispanic people. We were trying to build something. We were trying to productize a service. We had great revenue, we had great clients, and we were ready. We had plans to build an MVP to develop this into a digital platform. As we do this, we understand that we need money to build this. We need to hire people to build this, and so I know now what venture is at this point in 2022. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
let's go try to raise some money. And immediately the no's got to me. No, 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 no. This makes no sense. Times are changing. We're going to go out. We're not going to be indoors anymore. We're going to go back out. And so we were trying to build a digital platform that
Right.
that made conferences logistics viable online, but everyone wanted to
Mm,
go back outside.
sure.
At the time, I was like, stop telling me no.
Right.
right? Like this, I have close to $1 million in ARR. I don't think many of your startups have that,
Right.
right? So
For
like
sure they
we
don't.
couldn't get a line of credit.
Yeah.
We couldn't get working capital. If we got private loans, ridiculous rates and crazy maturity dates. So it was like the culture wasn't working. The
Yep.
business, we were hitting a wall in the business. We couldn't grow fast enough. And at that point, it was like, okay, I can't do all of this at the same time.
Mm.
I have to
Mm-hmm.
really focus on what I want to do. And I took all those no's, and I was like, well, everyone I talked to was white or
Mm.
Asian. There's nothing wrong with that, but it was like
Mm.
they didn't see my idea. They didn't, maybe I didn't paint it the correct way, right?
Sure, it could be.
It could
Yep.
be, right? They didn't see what we were trying to do and why we were trying to do it. And I was like, okay, let me see if I could change that. So I had taken all those venture classes.
Mm.
I had
Mm-hmm.
become part of a Latinos in tech community called Tequeria, which I now help lead the chapter in the Bay Area. And that's where I started building community. That's where I saw other
Right.
tech professionals. That's where I saw other Latinos VCs. And that just shifted my mindset. It was
Mm.
like, oh, they are people like me here.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to really search for them. And that just got me moving. It got me inspired. That got me thinking about ways I can help them. They can help me. I think there's something you and I talk often. We like to say we're relationship managers,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
We're not salespeople. We're not
Nope.
VCs.
Business developers, we're
We're
not
not any.
VCs,
We
we're
manage
relationship.
relationships. We
That's
help
it.
people get to where they want, when they want, and how they want, right?
Yep.
And so at this point, I've always had this thing in my mind that's like give, 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 right? But I finally decided to ask for help, which is as a
Good for
Latino
you.
man something that we don't do,
Right.
right?
Good for you.
We do not ask for help, and asking for help was what opened up doors for me. Gave
That's
me the
incredible.
opportunity to work at a micro fund in Mexico City as a fellow,
Yeah.
helping them raise capital and invest in female um, founders in Latin America. Then it got me the opportunity to join the venture studio that I was part of, LF1,
Yeah.
and really help grow that business, investing in all sorts of early stage um, businesses, and it got me to where I am now, asking for
Yep.
help.
Yep.
And
No, it did.
yeah,
Literally. And looking for community, like looking for trying to find your tribe,
yeah,
right? On a new frontier, so to speak. All right. So you just teased it perfectly. Thank you for the segue. Right. So you've worked inside of VC. There's a question in here, but inside of VC, you've worked in what we might call kind of a few like non-traditional firms,
yeah,
right? And you can describe those, or a smaller one, right? Like, and we know the person behind the story of the Mexico City Fund, and that in and of itself is a story of kind of creation against adversity,
yeah.
and against kind of going against the run of play, as we would say in football. And so to me, that gives you a really unique insight into what venture capital, and you said this already, like you learned what it is. So it gives you a really unique understanding of what it is, but also what it can be. And so in this context, like, talk to me about what you've learned so far about what it is and what it can or can't be. Like, is it possible for us to reinvent venture capital? Is it possible for you and your peers to create an adjacent path or another path, or is the venture capital industry just, this is what we are? We're really no different than New York
Shoot,
finance. We're 2,000 years of tradition. That's the way it's always going to be.
you're gonna get me in trouble here, Rob. I think venture capital, specifically here in the Bay, is a click.
Sure.
I think it's I'm not saying it wasn't earned. I'm not saying it's not valid what it is, because it certainly is. It creates millions of jobs. It creates tons of opportunity for this country. but it is, sometimes I like to say this, incestuous. It
That's a
feeds
great.
upon itself. It marries itself. It it helps itself out in more ways, in good and bad ways. You leave this firm to get this position at that firm. You go that way. You help this firm work out this deal. It's essentially is a symbiote. It just works together and hardly
Mm-hmm.
lets others from outside in,
Mm,
right? You need to know, you need to be very notable, have built something very big, have known very well connected people, be a legacy, be a child of one of these industry titans to be let in. That's not to
mm,
say that you don't belong in,
sure.
but it's just the fake meritocracy argument that goes on a lot here is flawed. You
Yeah, we love our. I mean, as Americans as a whole, right? I always say we're the most well marketed country story in the history of mankind.
Yeah,
Um, and in part, we love our bootstrap meritocracy argument, right? That says this is what
it's
makes us special. When anybody who has a excuse me, anybody who has a even a smidge of a diversified life experience in this country knows that it is not a meritocracy and that it
it's
is
not.
and that there is no such thing as a true bootstrap, right? It's a mythological character that we have attached ourselves to, and that we then say that, like, why can't you be like that mythological character? But that character was never real.
And if it were, right, if meritocracy were real, I think black and brown folks would have a lot more input, a lot more
Of course.
space that they're taking up inside these industries that so love meritocracy or the talk of it. Um, but
So without I don't want, I'm not going to put you on the spot personally. So this, but you as a representative in this case, right? So how do you then, as a brown skinned man, right, from a non traditional background, from outside that bubble click country club, so to speak, how do you navigate? Because you are navigating it, and you are, and I'll say it, you are navigating it successfully. Like, you are establishing your career, you're building up a track record of trust and respect across some of the people that we have in common and just the industry at large. Like, how do you do that?
this may sound very like it may sound elitist, but you you do the job. You find a way to get the job done. Obama
Okay.
said this in one of his last interviews. Was like you gotta find what problem there is, and just find a way to do it. Right. And
Okay.
so I there's a lack of representation in the industry. All right, let's find the people who want to be in the industry, help them out. Let's get them into it. Let's get them jobs. Let's get them trained. Do it. Right. For me, it's yeah, I'm brown. Yeah, I'm Hispanic. Yeah, I don't come from an IB background. I didn't work for one of the Magnificent Seven or start a huge startup. No. But what I did do while I was in New York selling apartments to people from all over the world was get to know people, get to know what they like, get to know what they don't like, how they react, how to manage those relationships. I was a salesperson, but I was a relationship manager in
Mm-hmm.
New York, right? And so I learned how to manage people's expectations, how they work, and that's the way I've gotten to where I am here. What do you like? What do you need? When do you need it? Where do you need it? Let me figure out a way to get you
Yeah.
those things when you need it, how you need it. Whether it's through me directly, a friend, a colleague, if I have to call someone that knows a colleague, I'll figure out a way.
Yeah.
And that's
There's always going to
been,
be an opportunity. There's always going to be a path or an opportunity or a job for someone who wakes up and wants to be helpful, right?
yeah, I
Like,
absolutely.
help the guy, the hiring people at the firm, where they might not have ever looked at someone that looks or sounds like you. Help them achieve what they're trying to achieve, and that's an opportunity, right? Okay, he specified how he can come in and help us do the thing that we told him we're trying to do.
Yeah, and
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
and in sales, like when you get a no, it's a no for now, and it may not even be a no for now. It's just not you're not phrasing it correctly, right? It's a
Yep.
There may be a point down the line where it's a yes, right? You just have
Yep.
to find the right opportunity for that person to say yes to, right?
Yep.
So that's how I think, and I hate to say this, but like sometimes I get annoyed by people complaining about there not being space, but I completely get it. I complain all the time.
Yeah.
But we just need to find a way to do it. And once we're
Find
there,
find spaces
find
at the proverbial at something at the table, at the watering hole, at the trough, whatever. Find you're saying like, okay, we can be cognizant of the disparities, the discrimination, the problems, the lack of equity, the lack. We can all acknowledge
acknowledge
that,
that and
and it's
then go
okay.
out and do
Get
it
get to
anyways.
work. Find your way to attach to it, and then make it better by being in it.
Exactly. And then make
Yeah,
yourself prevalent, make
there you
yourself
go.
known.
Yeah,
Everyone, they may not know everything about you. They may not know your name. They know your face.
sure.
They
No,
know
100%.
that when you
You
were
show up.
in that room, you added some value, that's something that
Yeah.
stuck to you or someone you know. And one of the ways that I got to where I am, I'm not saying I'm at the mountaintop, nowhere
You're
close.
not.
I'm not.
Not yet. You're
Not.
on the mountain.
I'm.
You're but
I'm
you're higher on the mountain than you were last year, and the
exactly.
year before, and you're climbing up the mountain. Exactly.
But I went to every
Yeah.
event in the city that there was some VC that I knew of or a startup that
Hmm.
I knew of, I would go and I would talk. I can be a little bit shy at first, but I broke out of that mold because I knew I just had to. I had no other
Yeah.
choice if I wanted to make it in this space.
No, that's
And
terrific.
no, I don't work for the biggest VC firms in the valley. In fact, I work for pretty small firms. But it kind
Let's
of
actually let's talk about this one. Let's both explain to me what you're doing now. So investment manager at CoreNest. So explain to me what you're doing, like what your work is on a daily basis. And then this is your commercial to talk about CoreNest. Like what is CoreNest? Where does CoreNest fit in the ecosystem?
yes. So I'm the investment strategy manager at CoreNest Capital. CoreNest Capital was started late last year of 2023 by two longtime entrepreneurs with tons of entrepreneurship, manufacturing, technology, space history and experience, starting multiple service business in those industries, manufacturing, and from their own capital, from their own experience, they decided to start this firm where we're trying to deploy at least $10 million a year into early stage founders and teams from pre-seed to
Okay.
series A. We write checks from 100,000 to 1 million, depending on the level of traction developed, depending on how big and moonshotty the idea is. We specifically look for entrepreneurs that have built things before. I'm not saying build a huge company. I'm not saying a
Yeah.
technology startup. Build things, build a construction company, build a car, whatever. That it, entrepreneurial lifestyle, entrepreneurial thinking, that sort of background understanding of what this life means for the next 10 years
Mm.
is crucial to how we pick our founders.
You
Um,
guys, you guys say on your website or somewhere in your materials that you can turn anyone's startup into the next big thing.
we can
So
certainly try.
how do we do that? How does CoreNest try and do that?
So I think for us, it's both good that we're small and bad that we're small. So we can't lead. We don't lead investments, right? And so we have limited say in how a startup operates. However, being relationship managers, we try to show our value from day -1, right? From the day that we start speaking to you, before we invest in you, to the day you exit, we're adding value by asking you what you need from anyone for anything. Uh, do you need more money? Do you need a new introduction? Do you need clients? We have the capability, the experience to provide you at least some of that, right? And with RGP's vast knowledge of entrepreneurship, of building in the manufacturing and in technology space, of being very well connected in the Middle East, in Asia, in Europe, we can bring these new viable markets to these startups. Right? US
Oh,
startups that
terrific.
want to expand in Dubai, in the Middle East, in Singapore, we have those connections, we have that knowledge of how to transact and do business in those areas. So we can advise our startups and our founders on how to go about that.
Hmm.
With growth strategy backgrounds as well. We know what how to price things. We know how to market things in specific ways that are catered to your business. Again, we can only we can only add this value when the startup asks for it, but we make
Hmm.
it so that we're prevalent in we're keeping them updated, letting them know that we're here for them. Whatever they need, they could come to us, right?
That's great.
Because we can't
That's
force
great.
them to. You can't force the horse to
No, of
drink.
course not. No, you're there as a support system. You're not. You don't run the business for them.
Exactly.
Um,
And for me, what I do here is I manage those relationships. I manage the sourcing, making sure that it's within our thesis, making sure that we are developing partnerships to help us gain access to the best sort of caliber startups and founders. We're small, we're new. So that already has is pitfalls, right? So we
yeah. So
need to
as
partner with people.
I was going to say, so as the relationship, you kind of almost started to tease a question I was going to ask. Because the relationship guy is the tip of the spear, so to speak, in this effort. What do you look for? Maybe one or two qualities that you look for that help you, Pedro, when you're out mixing in the community to identify promising startups or founders that have that potential.
Maybe this is cliche, but someone with a vision, right? Someone with the goal to say, I'm going to make this happen with or without your money. Because in that person, I kind of see a little bit of myself. I kind of see a little
Mm-hmm.
bit of my former co founders, and like, we're going to do this regardless of what you tell us. Because you kind of have to be a little bit crazy to be a
Mm-hmm.
founder. Not a little bit, a lot crazy to be a
Right.
founder. And you have to believe in yourself more than anyone ever will. And so if I see a founder that sort of doesn't believe what they're trying to sell me, all right, it's kind of like a pass because you're trying to get my money, but you're also going to try to go out there and sell to potential customers and try to get their money. They're not going to believe you, and they're going to be a lot more critical of your product because they're actually going to use your
Sure.
product, right?
Sure.
And your product is critical to their operations and to them making money. So you got to believe in yourself. You got to be a visionary. You have to sell the big picture. You are what you are today, but what will you be tomorrow? And so I try to manage and build relationships that will get me to those founders in whatever way possible.
You and I proudly talk about each other as relationship capitalists, right? I'm curious. Do you have mentors in your life?
So one, I have what is building up to be mentorship. I have
Okay.
people that I see as mentors. They don't know that they're my mentors, but who they go about life and their experience is so that I can relate to it and I understand how they've navigated their life and their career experiences. There are about two or three people who I would consider my mentors. And I would say a big problem that we have within the Hispanic community or the Black community is that for so long we've been the only person in the room, and so industry stalwarts kind of want to defend their position in that room.
Sure.
And when you see another younger, more active person try to come into that room and
Mm,
takes a little bit of that shine away from you, you become kind of resistant to that change, and
sure.
you become like less helpful. You don't want to help that same person the same way.
Little bit of like, hey, I built my own bridge to get across. I'm here now. Maybe I'd pull up the bridge a little bit.
Yeah,
Just it's just like the way you describe it. The way I'm feeling your description is almost feels like protective, like
yeah,
instinctive.
it's instinctive to protect your position wherever you're at, in your home, in your industry,
Yeah,
um, and it's negative. It's it
yeah.
it's why I believe it's why we have less VCs of color today,
Okay.
because a lot of the people that have been here for 20, 30 years, yes, they've built the roadmap, but they haven't bring people along with them. All right, like
Right.
if you've been in a firm for 20 years and you're still the only there,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's not good.
that's
That's
not
not
good.
good.
You're not
It was good for
responsible.
you, but it was good for you or for your family, but it wasn't. It's not good.
But
Yeah.
also, I see the opposite. Is you're not responsible for building
True.
that path for anyone else. Should you? Definitely. I think you should. I would. I
Yeah.
would. I want to. Right? You have to
I
have
was
that
just gonna
desire.
say you seem. I was just gonna ask you that. Like you seem. This is not just today. Like you've always seemed this way, but in the frame of this question, you seem cognizant of. I don't want to say that responsibility, but kind of that opportunity or responsibility. Like you seem like you're leaning towards wanting to not repeat that pattern that you
Yeah,
just
I
described.
don't, and I don't know if it's evident or not from what we've discussed so far. But like, I kind of have a chip on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Like everyone tells me no,
Yeah.
and I figure out a way around it. And that's kind of the way I want to help people get into this space. It's like, all right, I'm not gonna tell you no. I'm gonna help you. I'm gonna help you make a space for yourself here. I'm gonna figure out how you can how we can coexist, how we can thrive in this space. Because my success doesn't mean that you need to be less successful. Because I'm here doesn't mean you can't be here, right?
Yeah.
We, particularly in this country, we operate in the management of resources. And we like to believe that all resources are scarce. And yes, they are scarce.
Mm-hmm.
However, you can find alternatives. You can find resources from elsewhere, right? You can see things differently. There's not just this one path. And that goes back to the entrepreneurial thinking.
Mm,
There
yeah.
is an exception, there is a way, there are other opportunities besides what is in front of us. And if you just continue to thrive, to seek that opportunity, then you will not stagnate. You will innovate. You will not
Mm,
die. You would live for a very long
mm-hmm.
time. And I think that's what,
Preach, preach,
yeah.
preach, brother Pedro. Preach, brother Pedro.
Uh,
Amen. Welcome to the Church of Entrepreneurial Thinking and Relationships. I love it.
yeah, I think
Um,
one last point I'll
that's
just add
awesome.
here is like I'm a first generation American. My mom is Dominican, my father is Ecuadorian. All my cousins are first generation Americans. We have an opportunity to be more than what our parents thought we could ever be, that they ever were. We have a responsibility, we have a duty to kind of move that needle forward for not only
Mm,
us, for them, but for our children whenever we decide to have them, if we haven't already. And we have helped build, construct, deliver this country to the status today, to the status
yep.
tomorrow, and in the past. And we do that by allowing new people in, by allowing smart people in, new ideas in, and by helping the best ideas come to light, not through nepotism, not
Mm-hmm.
through like the loudest voice in the room, although sometimes you have to be to get noticed,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yep.
but through sh- what works best, what is best, what provides the best, what idea is the best. I think
That's
that's what
awesome.
that's what first generation Americans, second generation Americans, how we add value to this. startup space, to this economy, to this country.
Yep.
And we
I
cannot be
100% agree.
blind to that level of engagement and motivation that we have and devotion that we have to this country, and to the success of this country.
It's absolutely true. And I will say history tells us already. It doesn't even have to be whittled down to my or your opinions. History tells us already that it is exactly what you just described, which is the actual basis of this country. And so, what has propelled this country to thrive at every stage along the way and reinvent itself multiple times along the way is exactly what you just described. It
Yeah.
is it is the next generation of the next group of newest people who come with their own perspectives and fresh ideas and then apply it to some fundamental principles. The
To the
meritocracy,
liberty,
the
the
merit.
the
Go ahead. Sorry.
liberties that we have, to the democracy that we have,
Yep.
to the rights that we don't have outside, or we have less. We bring that sort of strife and like desire, and we add that
Hmm.
to the right that we have to grow that here. It
It's powerful.
is just so powerful.
No, it's very powerful. All right. So, last question. What are maybe two or three steps that individuals or organizations can take to build more inclusive and supportive cultures or ecosystems, if you want to say, to make sure that we like thoughtfully bring in people from underrepresented backgrounds or from outside our bubbles? What are two or three steps that either individuals in their lives or organizations, maybe it's venture capital firms, maybe it's startup companies, can take to build these inclusive and supportive cultures to not just welcome in when they happen to find them, but go look for the underrepresented contributors?
I think one way specifically companies can allow that in is to stop pigeonholing people, right? Like, just because they went to the school, they're from this state, whatever, doesn't mean XYZ is going to happen, right? Like, there are plenty of Ivy League failures, just as there are plenty of city college successes, right?
100%
So
true.
stop pigeonholing people into like believing that one person's gonna create success versus the other isn't. One, I think another thing, like from an employee or someone who's seeking to join the space, to do is acknowledge the no, but go try to define the no. Like, go, like, no now, no forever. Go figure that out. Know why, right? And try to make the space for yourself if no one will make it for you. I think that's, it may seem very vague, but it's actionable, right? Like, because it's
Yeah.
dependent on the space that you want to live in or work in. Um, and I think the third step would be, third and fourth. Don't be afraid
Mm-hmm.
to ask for help. Ask for help, right? Even from the
Mm.
people who you think are less likely to give it to you, because you don't. People love to be asked for help. It is, well, not, well, one, it's an ego boost, but
Mm-hmm.
also to be needed, to be wanted. It's like, it's in our being. It's evolutionary for us to be dependent on. So don't be afraid to ask for help. You may just get it, right?
All
And
right.
then I think I had another point there, but don't be afraid to ask for
It's okay.
help, and don't be afraid to give help. Don't be afraid to
I mean
give
that
help.
that's a key, right? Is the give and take.
Yeah, like,
I mean that's because that eventually that's if we were to apply that question that I asked, right, about how can individuals either or organizations build and support inclusive systems, right? You're a perfect example in some ways, right? How you showed up on the West Coast, literally no connections, you, your wife, the cat, and then little by little, the combination of those last two pieces of advice that you gave, both asking for help and then being open to giving it, has led you to find the community. So it wasn't the big bad West Coast was unconquerable and there was never going to be anybody here like you and you weren't going to be happy. You're going to have to go back home. No, like you just kept at it. And because inevitably there are people like you. Of course there are,
they are.
right? You just have, maybe you just, like you said, maybe you just had to work at it a little bit harder to find them.
We're
But then once you
everywhere.
found them, right, once you found them, they're everywhere.
They're
So,
everywhere. We may look a little bit different. We may dance a little
yep,
bit different. We may speak a little bit
right.
different, but we are everywhere. And that's a great, beautiful thing. You just have to go out there and find it. Don't be afraid
That's
to help
100%
the
true.
person seeking for help. You never know when you may need the help.
Yeah,
And they may take
very
your
true.
advice, they may not take your advice. Don't be offended by it. It may not apply to them right then and
Yeah,
now.
that's terrific. This is terrific. This has been a blast. I want to say thank you because between you, me, and the audience, right? Like this isn't your favorite thing to do, and so you were willing to do it, but you were a little nervous, and so I am now both grateful for the fact that you took a little bit of a chance, you stretched yourself outside of your comfort zone to have a conversation with a friend that we're going to share with others in hopes that they can pick some things up that help them drive their lives forward. But I also want to like shout you out in a sense that the reason that you're here, selfishly for my life agenda, is that like you're going to be on these types of things, and your work in your communities is going to be spotlighted, and your career successes are going to be highlighted all across different types of media over the next 30 to 40 years of your life, right? And so I want to give Pedro Crespo the platform before anybody else will. Right. And so
Thank you.
for me, thank you for coming on and hanging out with me at exactly this moment in your life journey. Because everybody will want to do this interview 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. But I want to always quietly be able to know that that you and I had this conversation when we did, because I'm hopeful that it inspires you a little bit to look back at the mirror of this and realize like, hey, that's me, man. That's a pretty good. I got some things to say.
Oh, thanks, Rob, for giving me the space and the opportunity to be here. I
Yeah.
definitely was a little bit scared to do it. It's not
No,
something I
it was
typically
awesome.
am, but I would also like to add, you were one of the people who gave me an opportunity at first to judge a competition, and from that pitching competition that I was a judge at, I made so many connections that I was able
That's great.
to learn more about the industry and help other people and help get me to where I am now. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Hey, it's easy. My pleasure. Easy choice for me. Smart young guy with good aspirations who has a good heart. So, okay. How can people find and follow you on social media? And then how can people, if they want you, founders or LPs, right? How can folks find CoreNest and follow CoreNest?
So CoreNest is really easy to find, CoreNest.com. We're in the Bay Area. I'm at the Ferry Building all the time. I'm at almost all the events trying to find new partners. You can find me on LinkedIn, Pedro Crespo /MBA is the only way you can differentiate yourself
Yeah,
on
right.
LinkedIn. And yeah, just reach out to me. I answer almost all messages that aren't spam. And yeah, I look forward to hearing from you and answering questions and helping you in your journey in any which way possible.
That's great. Thanks, buddy.
All right, thanks, Rob.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode as much as I did recording it. As always, we thank you so much for listening and watching. Today's show was recorded here in Los Angeles and produced by the incomparable Deanna Bernal in Mexico City. We can only grow this show by you listening and sharing the show with friends. So please find, like, follow, subscribe, and share our audio-only show on Spotify, Apple, or via any other popular podcasting platforms, as well as find the video version of our show now available on our YouTube channel over at Entrepreneurial Thinkers. And of course, you can follow along on our various social media platforms for fun and informative clips and content at Entrepreneurial Thinkers, wherever you can find us. And if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me at I Am Rob Ryan on just about any social media platform. Gracias, thank you, and have an awesome day.